Hi, I'm Rob from B&H, and today we're reviewing an innovative new camcorder from Canon, the EOS C300. Since Canon announced details last year, the camera has garnered a great deal of buzz from the world of cinematography and professional video, and for good reason. After sparking a true paradigm shift for HD videography a few years ago with the release of the EOS 5D Mark II, everyone wanted to see what Canon would do next. After all, the company makes everything from photo and broadcast lenses to point-and-shoot cameras, from DSLRs and pro video camcorders to individual components like image processors and sensors. The company could have gone in any one of many directions. Well, now we know. The EOS C300 is the inaugural member of Canon's new Cinema EOS line. Intended for digital cinematography, it's a compact, professional, large sensor model with a modular design. Anyone involved in documentary filmmaking, episodic television, commercial production, and independent features will want to learn the details of this camera. In this video, we're going to break down the camera component by component and feature by feature. Throughout the video, we'll see some footage that our B&H in-house professionals shot, and then a little later, we'll examine the files in the studio at B&H's color grading and finishing suite to see how the camera performs. By the end of the video, you should be able to determine whether, for you, the EOS C300 lives up to its hype, and also you'll have an idea of some of the applications at which this camera excels. The camera records 1080 or 720 line HD video at both PAL and NTSC frame rates, as well as true cinematic 24p. This video is encoded as Canon's XF codec, an MPEG-2 variant that features 4:2:2 color space. The C300 records to 2 compact flash cards, either in sequence or simultaneously. Stripped down, as you can see, the EOS C300 looks a bit like a Canon 1D, but it's a bit bulkier, weighing in at 3.2 pounds. But this HD camcorder, as we'll see, is decidedly not just a jumbo version of a DSLR camera, despite the fact that it accepts the same lenses that you might use with a Canon 1D or 5D. The camera actually comes in 2 versions. One with an EF lens mount that's compatible with those DSLR lenses from Canon and other lens manufacturers. The other version has a PL mount that accepts Cine lenses from manufacturers like Zeiss and Angenieux. The model that we're checking out is the EF version. That lens mount is one of the reasons this camera serves as a bridge between the worlds of DSLR filmmaking and more traditional digital cinematography. For those of you who already have an arsenal of EF mount lenses for either still photography or for DSLR video production, this camera will make full use of that investment that you've already made in glass. And to make things even more interesting, Canon will soon roll out a line of Cinema EOS zoom and prime lenses in both EF and PL mount versions. Just don't expect to make use of any autofocus functions on your existing lenses, however. The Canon EOS C300 is a fully manual camera model, and that goes for focus, exposure, aperture, and white balance. Despite that, many aspects of the EOS C300 will make it quite familiar to DSLR filmmakers, such as the interchangeable lenses and the large single sensor that enables a shallow depth of field. But many additional features will make the camera attractive to those who demand a camera model that's suited for traditional digital cinematography. We've mentioned the familiar lens mounts. As you'd expect, the EOS C300 accepts any EF mount lens, whether it's a telephoto, a zoom, a macro lens, a fisheye, or a fixed focal length prime. Behind the lens is a single Super 35 CMOS sensor that Canon designed specifically for this camera. It's almost exactly the same size as a frame of 3-perf Super 35mm film, which gives the camera certain optical qualities that put it in line with motion picture film cameras. Super 35 sensor size is one that Sony has also embraced for its large sensor camcorders, including the NEX FS100 and the PMW F3. The F3 is the camera that the Canon C300 most closely resembles in terms of features and price, but as we'll see, there are several key differences between the two models. Super 35 is quite a bit smaller than the full-frame sensor that you'll find on the Canon EOS 5D, and it's roughly equivalent to the APS-C size. Because it's designed specifically for widescreen video capture, it's got a slightly bigger useful area for that application as compared to APS-C. Canon designed the chip with the goal of approaching the imaging qualities of 35mm motion picture film. The Super 35 sensor measures 3840 by 2160 effective pixels, or about 8.3 megapixels. The sensor reads out individual red, green, and blue video components, each with a full 1920 by 1080 resolution, and there's no need for a debayering algorithm. This RGB data is sent to the Digic DV III image processor, which addresses them as individual red, green, and blue channels to maintain color fidelity. Suffice it to say that this process is meant to ameliorate some of the shortcomings associated with single sensor systems as compared to 3-chip designs. Let's take a look at what that sensor can actually do. With a micro lens transferring maximum light to each individual photo site on the chip, and proprietary technologies both lowering the noise floor and enhancing light gathering capacity, low light performance is a true strength of the C300. In fact, maximum ISO of the camera is 20,000. Canon describes the noise at that level as non-patterned. The camera also comes standard with a Canon log gamma function that expands the camera's dynamic range, which Canon specifies as 12 stops with that log function turned on. Later, we'll also talk more about that and show you how the camera performed in our own field tests. The EOS C300 records MPEG-2 video to compact flash cards at 25, 35, or 50 megabits per second. Featuring 4:2:2 color space, this video is significantly less compressed than the AVC HD video many consumer and less expensive professional or prosumer models capture, or the H.264 files that DSLRs like the 5D acquire. As such, this XF codec video is designed to survive the rigors of post-production, including color correction and chroma key production involving green screens. At just over 3 pounds when it's stripped down, the body of the C300 provides enough heft to eliminate a lot of the free-floating jerkiness that often results from hand-holding a lightweight DSLR video camera without any kind of a rig. At the same time, for a professional video camera, this is a remarkably small form factor. The body is compact enough to thrive in tight spaces where film cameras and traditional shoulder mount camcorders might never fit. Canon has also designed a sophisticated silent cooling system to prevent the EOS C300 from running hot. Not only does the C300 accept interchangeable lenses, but the camera handle, the hand grip, and the LCD monitor assembly are all easily detachable. These are especially welcome options for times when, for instance, you're mounting the camcorder on a tripod and won't need the right-handed grip. The grip is actually rotatable a full 360 degrees, so you can also customize the location of key controls such as record, stop, start, and the aperture adjustment. Or when you're using an external HD SDI or HDMI monitor, you can remove the included 4-inch monitor from the top of the camera. The monitor can be attached to a central position at the top of the camera or to a forward position on the included detachable handle. It also rotates across quite a broad range up and down and left to right, likely offering the exact position that you're after. The camera handle facilitates operation styles such as low angle shooting. Besides the detachable LCD monitor, there's also a sharp color viewfinder that's about ½ an inch across on the diagonal. Allowing 60 degrees of adjustment, the viewfinder has over 1.5 million dots of resolution and 100% field of view. The included LCD monitor is quite a powerful, versatile display. Because you'll be operating completely manually with the C300, it's comforting to know that the 4-inch monitor includes all the visual assistance you'll need to ensure the lens is focused properly and the exposure is set to the right level. There's a built-in waveform monitor for determining brightness and a vector scope for checking saturation and hue. There's also Zebra for checking your exposure and 2 peaking modes for focus assists. On top of all that, there's a Magnify button on the grip which allows you to zoom into your image even while you're recording to ensure that your image is properly focused. The monitor assembly also includes the dual XLR ports, which feature 48-volt phantom power for external microphones. Since there's no built-in microphone on the EOS C300, there's also a 3.5mm jack for hooking up a mic for recording a scratch audio track. The included monitor connects to the camera via 2 cords with proprietary connections, one that sends video to the display and another that sends audio to the camera. A crucial function of the 4-inch monitor that external monitors won't be able to handle is the View Assist mode. This function essentially applies a lookup table to the video while you're in Canon log mode to give you a better idea of how your video will look after you've applied an LUT in post-production. As mentioned, Canon log extends the dynamic range that's possible from the camera. Besides Canon log, the other significant mode that the EOS C300 camcorder offers is a true 24 frames per second mode, and that's 24.00 frames per second, not 23.98. Of course, the camera also does that 23.98 rate, but having the exact 24 frames per second mode makes the camera desirable for any project that's going to have a film out. With exactly 24 frames a second, you avoid the audio sync headaches that can be problematic for long programs shot at 23.98, and you skip at least one step in post. You can play back 60p in a 24p project so that it displays as a slow motion video. Now 60p is only available in 720 line modes, not in 1080. There are also a couple different low frame rate choices that will result in fast motion video. The camera also ships with 9 preset scene files, which Canon calls custom pictures. Up to 20 custom picture files can be saved to the camera's SD card slot, which is also used for storing captured still images. The Canon EOS C300 was designed not for still photo capture, but for digital cinematography. That means camera controls are where filmmakers expect them to be and not buried within layers of menus. There's enough real estate on the body to make your operation of the camera as ergonomically sound as possible. You can even turn the main power switch of the camera to a position that locks all buttons in case you're worried you'll accidentally change settings during a shot. Of course, with any camera with this many options, you're not going to avoid the menu system entirely, but Canon makes it easy to operate efficiently with the C300. With 15 programmable buttons, you can assign any function among 30 possibilities to any spot on the camera. Each button is labeled from 1 to 15, so you're less likely to get lost among all the buttons. This is, of course, extremely helpful if there are some menu functions that you typically need to access during the course of a shoot. For instance, you might want to switch to 60p mode so you can record at 60 progressive frames per second for capturing slow motion video. If you're otherwise shooting in 24p that day, you can assign 60p to one of the buttons to make it an easy switchover. The EOS C300 includes all the digital inputs and outputs that you'd expect from a camcorder at this level. For multi-camera shoots, there's a Genlock Input. There's also timecode input and output, and of course, HDMI and HD SDI outputs for the external display. The HD SDI outputs do not put out a native 24p stream. For this and other reasons, it's probably not an ideal workflow to record video signals to an external device. Canon intended the camera to record XF files to compact flash cards, so that's something to think about if external recording was something you were considering. An external recorder might not be a crucial accessory for this camcorder, but clearly the C300 is open to third-party monitoring solutions. As far as other accessories, Canon's also devised an option for controlling the C300 via Wi-Fi. If you buy an optional WFT E6A wireless file transmitter, you'll be able to monitor and control many camera functions by using your web browser, smartphone, or tablet device, such as an iPad. Remote control presents some intriguing creative applications for many types of shoots. In addition to the broad range of DSLR lenses that are already available, Canon will also be rolling out a line of compatible EF Cine lenses, both zooms and primes, that are specifically designed for this camcorder and thus specifically designed for filmmaking. That means focal length markings are engraved into angled components of the lens that are visible from behind the camera. Also, the front diameters of these lenses will be uniform, which allows you to use a matte box or a follow focus device with the lens and not have to adjust too much if you decide to change lenses during your shoot. Beyond that, the camera is ready to perform what Canon calls peripheral illumination correction on a wide variety of Canon EF lenses that support the technology. This means that the camera's firmware contains a profile for a particular lens, which allows it to compensate for the light fall off or vignetting characteristics of each lens. Before we get into our post-production tests, it's important to note that Canon's XF codec enjoys native support from popular professional nonlinear editing programs such as Adobe Premiere Pro and Avid Media Composer. And the codec's MXF wrapper puts audio, video, timecode, and metadata together in one package, so you'll have everything you need in one place, including information like lens info. Next step, let's visit the studio at B&H, our solution-based division focused on serving all professional markets. Our workflow solutions specialist, Michelle Suissa, will speak to us about integrating the C300 into existing post environments. Our camera operator shot in Canon log mode to test the dynamic range that's possible from the EOS C300, and also shot some footage in extremely low light to test the camera's performance in those conditions.
The studio at B&H is the professional division of B&H. We have a number of services and resources that are dedicated to providing high-end solutions to anyone in the broadcast, production, digital cinema or post-production markets. We have an incredible team of sales engineers. We have also a very, very strong backbone of organizational sales that gives us sort of access to tremendous amount of resources to best serve any part of any industry that relates to the high-end of professional video and digital cinema. We haven't had a chance to dive very, very deeply into analyzing the images, but first impression is the camera is producing incredible images, that's without a doubt. The log space integrates very well into your post-production workflow. We put the images into a color grading system and ran a lookup table, and we had a lot of range. We do have the ability to look at them in video space, which if you will see, it gives you a little more of a clipped sort of signal, or in full space, which gives you the entire spectrum, the entire gamut of camera exposure latitude. And if I keep toggling between the two, you'll see that a lot of highlights are being recaptured, as going from the video space to the full space. If I'm going to go and zoom in here on these clouds, you'll see that going from one to the other, a lot of details lost, all the details are back. Capturing in log space is really a great advantage. The great advantage is that even though the images look a little bit milky because it's sort of compressed, and there are no crushed blacks and no overexposed highlights, this is something that can easily be modified with the help of lookup tables. The other thing that we can do here with the system is just go to the color transform and just apply the transformation that we think we want to see on these images. It's a little milky here, so we can just say, okay, we're going to bring the blacks down a little bit, open some of the midtones so we don't lose any details. And we're burning a little bit of highlights, but it's okay because as you can see, that's the log, and that's now what I could say is a traditional lookup table value, custom lookup table that I decided to make. Being in a 32-bit floating point environment, nothing is destructive. So if I were to go back and want to isolate the highlights, I could just go back and re-isolate the highlights, and still that detail is still going to be there. So then, the principle of color grading is you're going to isolate some elements of your image, to combine them with others. And in this case, you'd have the ability to say, okay, this is a great base image, and then you'd want to add another layer where you would actually bring some of the highlights back, so you get the clouds detail that you always wanted. So, that's essentially, it's in literally 2 minutes, we've been able to go from something that's milky to something that's really has some depth, and that gives you the sense that there is even more. It's really extraordinary that we're able to, in not even a day, capture images, throw the images into a scratch system, do minor color grading, and realize that it is indeed not only very, very easy to integrate into an existing high-end post-production workflow, but at the same time that you do have the ability to work in a almost traditional film mode, with a logarithmic space. That really is making this camera, an extraordinary tool for filmmakers in years to come.
So there you have it. By now you should be pretty familiar with the form and most of the functions on the Canon EOS C300 camera, and you've seen some real-world tests of its performance. I'm Rob from B&H, and thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.